legends, welcome to another video where we talk about surfaces. We're not talking about kitchen surfaces today. No, not your bench top. No, not your desktop. No, we're talking about surfaces that are good for pastels, soft pastels. Ba, 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 ba. This is kind of a follow-on from my previous video where we talk about all the different pastels in all the world. Not in all the world, but all the ones that I own and what I think, my opinions, what ones I think you should get. You don't have to watch the first one, but if you want to, please do. I'll put a link down below for it. We're just talking about paper. Well, not even just paper. We're talking about things that you can draw with soft pastels on. Let's get crack-a-lackin'. So the papers you can use for soft pastels fall into two categories: prepped and unprepped. Some people might say sanded and unsanded. It just means that the surface has a primer on it. So if a surface has a primer on it, and we'll talk about primers in a minute, it means that it's prepped or sanded. So sanded just means it's added sand. Not sand, I don't think it's literally sand, but it feels like a fine sandpaper is basically why they call it sanded. So we're gonna go through some papers. I've kind of put them into three categories. The first category is just unprepped, unsanded paper. And the last two categories are both prepped, but prepped by me and machine prepped. So let's have a little look. I'm not actually going to do a demonstration on the first category, which is the unprepped paper, because literally with unprepped paper, you can use any paper you like. There are certain papers that are better or not, and that's based on their tooth. So we'll have a little chat about tooth before I launch in the types of papers I've got. Tooth is basically how bumpy a surface of a paper is. If it's smooth, there's no tooth. If it's nice and rough, that means it's got a tooth. The better the tooth of a paper, the more rough it is, the more pastel and dry pigment it will hold. So what that means is that you can do more layers. Basically that's it. That's the essence of it. You can do more layers. Something with no tooth, you might only be able to get one layer down. And really, pastels are the type of thing you really want to layer up. At least 2 or 3 layers. I don't do a heap of layering. Lots of people do really fine layers, really thin layers. I do thick layers, but I still layer up on top of each other. And so I still want a decent tooth to be able to do that. Otherwise, your artworks end up being quite flat. Does it mean you're going to make a bad artwork? No. But you just need to test your paper. Smoother papers are not very good for pastels. That's what you just need to remember, which is why people added the sanded surface to it. So add the primers or buy papers that have already got the sanded surface, because it's great tooth. It's better than normal paper. All right, so let's have a little chat about regular, unprepped, unsanded paper. There are so many different types of paper you can get. You can use any you want. This bad boy, this paper here, is just cartridge paper. I'm not joking, cheap cartridge paper. You can see over my shoulder here is my cartridge. I've got A3 and I've got A4 cartridge paper. That's this bad boy. I think this is 160 GSM cartridge paper. It's nothing fancy. I think that pack of 500 A4 sheets cost me $50. So you're talking 10 cents a sheet. You don't have to have expensive paper to do soft pastels. I quite regularly use this paper if I just want regular paper to do a quick drawing on, because sometimes I just do line drawings, in which case I don't need much tooth, if any. So cartridge paper is really all you need to start. You can get specific drawing papers, which is what I'm going to show you now. So these are papers that companies have released and say that these are drawing papers. They're great for dry media. We all know I love Artec. It's Australian owned and made. It's relatively inexpensive. Their sketch pad is great for soft pastels. Again, similar to the cartridge paper, it doesn't hold a heap of layers, but if I'm just after a super quick drawing or something with minimal layers, or I'm going to erase, I use this for charcoal too. It's actually quite good. Unless you're planning to do a super hyper realistic drawing that requires lots of layers and things, get amongst this. Especially while you're learning, just get the cheap papers. You can still sell artworks on this paper. This is good paper. It's acid free. This is 110 GSM. I like the Como paper because it's thicker and you can add a little bit of watercolor and stuff to it. Not heaps because it's not watercolor paper. I've also got their craft pad. So I get the big A2 blocks and then I can cut them down if need be. So I get their craft paper as well. I love soft pastels on craft paper. It just makes them pop. Makes the colors pop. Similar situation to the sketch pad in terms of tooth. So you can't put too many layers down. To be expected for most papers, even some of these more expensive ones I'm about to show you. So this one is a very fancy drawing paper that I bought a while back. I actually think this pad cost me anywhere between, I think it was like $80 for this. Nice paper though, very nice paper to draw on. Do I think it's better than the Artec? Probably a little bit, but not ridiculously. You can buy them if you like. It's slightly creamier coloured than the normal ones, than cartridge paper. The next ones I'm going to show you, for some reason I can't find the pads of paper. I have A3 pads of each of these 3 colours. Like I said, the soft pastel colours pop on craft paper. It's the same with other colours. Other colours really seem to complement it. So the next ones, these ones are Fabriano tone paper. They come in, well, I think they come in 4 colours. I've got 3 colours anyway. This is the C colour, so it's a lovely blue colour. The one thing that I do find with all 3 of the colours that I've got, they're very hard to photograph to sell. Because the blue in the background's hard to capture. So I try to keep them relatively small so I can scan them, because the scans seem to bring up the colour of the background so much better than a photograph. And I think my camera here now is not really showing you the colour very well either. They're not easy papers to photograph. Just keep that in mind. I'm not a very good photographer. So if you're a better photographer than me, you might do it better. So that's the C. This is the moss coloured. So like I said, these are great. I really actually like them for charcoal drawings like this. They actually holds up very nicely to it. And then I've got the sand colour. So I've actually got it in A3. So this is the sheet, the size of the sheets I've got. For some reason I don't know where they are. Like I said though, I buy the bigger sheets and rip them down because I find that's cheaper. These pads again are not cheap. They are very nice to draw on. The colours are really nice too. But again, they're not cheap. So do you need them? If you're starting out and you don't have heaps of money, you don't need this paper. I'm just showing you what's good. I thoroughly enjoy this paper. This one's just your standard Mitons. Canson Mitons. I think I'm saying that's right. It's French. That's why it's like kind of a Frenchy accent type thing. Mitons. Miton? I'm not sure exactly. So this is the standard Mitons. So this is the first one they brought out. It's not prepped. Comes in a heap of different colours. This is just a grey. I don't know exactly what colour it is. I started a drawing of a cow over on this side. I use white sometimes to do the drawing. Yeah, it's a great paper. It comes in nice big sheets, comes in pads, all sorts of things. Speaking of which, the Mitons comes in sketchbooks as well. So I just wanted to show you. I've got, which I haven't used much. I need to use it more. This is the Mitons sketchbook. It's a Canson sketchbook that's got all the paper in it. Speaking of which, I do have another sketchbook. This is just the Strathmore Toned Tan sketchbook. I've not used it heaps. I haven't used it much for soft pastels at all. I've used it for oil pastels. It's great for oil pastels, but it is quite a smooth paper. I'll have to try it, I suppose, with the soft pastels. Like I said, you can literally use any paper. You can use watercolor paper. So I got recently this Armatruda watercolor paper. As watercolor paper, I don't really like it, to be honest, but I actually think this would be brilliant as pastel paper. I have cheaper watercolor paper as well that is perfectly fine. Only thing with watercolor paper is you want a watercolor paper that is cold pressed. Hot pressed is not going to work very well unless you prep it, which is going to be my next category. So use watercolor paper, cheap watercolor paper. I use Montmartre all the time, more for practicing. Make sure it's acid free though if you're going to sell it, because otherwise it goes yellow and it affects the colors and things like that. We're now going to talk about prepped papers. So like I said, I've kind of split this category into 2, with self-prepped and then machine prepped. I'm actually going to put you down and we're going to try some of my prepped papers for you to see how they go, and I'll explain what they're made of and things like that. Okay, so here's the first one. I made this sketchbook. You may have seen me use this last week in last week's video as well. I made this sketchbook out of craft paper. Now I have prepped each of these pages, both front and back, and then placed a piece of tracing paper between to protect the two drawings, so I can draw on every page. I prepped these pages with, not specifically this one, but Art Spectrum Colourfix Original Primer. I used the clear primer. And on these pages, I actually screen printed them because it makes it a really nice, smooth surface. When I say smooth, I mean there's no brush marks. So it's even's probably a better word, even layer across the whole page. And when you feel it, it's like a really fine sandpaper on that page now. So I prepped every single page of this with this Colourfix, and this is actually very, very nice. This strip of paper here I prepped with this Colourfix, this exact one. This is the olive green. It comes in a heap of colours. Okay, so I'm going to test each paper with 3 different colours. I've got this reddy colour. These are just cheapy no-name ones. I'm not even sure what brand they are. Probably either Reeves or Mungio machine-made pastels. So I've got a red. I've got like an ochre yellowy colour. And I've got a blue. This blue is a semi-hard pastel, so it'd be interesting to see what it's like. I'm going to try every single one of these papers with these 3 pastels. I wanted to show you these two as the 2 different ways you can prep a paper yourself. You can brush it on, because that's what I did with this. I can only screen print up to A4 sized, so a larger sheet like this, you have to use a brush. So I used thinner layers to try and get it as even as I could, so you wouldn't be able to see the brush marks, because I'll show you in a minute. So you can see, oh, very nice, very nice. I'm just going to do a couple of squiggles on it. It just holds the pigment so much easier. So if I use this one over here, it doesn't hold it so much. And if I actually do like a blob, this is just tracing paper, by the way, it's a lot harder to go over the top. But if I do a blob like that over here, it's a lot easier to go over. Now I put a lot of pigment down there. So let's have a little look. This is the one I brushed on. I brushed it on, so I'll just do my squiggles. And you can kind of see the difference in the colours when you use a darker colour, darker primer versus a mid-tone primer. You can see as I'm applying that blue, so you can actually see the brush marks through the soft pastel. So that's why I'm not a big fan of brushing on primers. I would rather screen print, because you do not get any of these brush marks, and you can see the lines of the brush marks through the pastel, and for me that's a pain in the... Now, one of my other ways you can prepare paper, I've actually never tried this, so it'll be interesting. We're going to try this together. This here is Heraldo de Palo, sorry again, I'm not sure if I say that right, but it sounds right to me. Hot pressed watercolor paper, 300 GSM. Now, being hot pressed, it's smooth. If I get my... it works, but I'm not going to be able to layer up very much on it. So the way you can prepare some watercolor paper so that it will take soft pastels more is by giving it a light sand. Now this sandpaper is 180 grit. I actually think it's probably too rough for it. I've never actually tried this. I got this from Maddog Cafe. She suggested this and she said it was like a brilliant hack. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to sand over here. Now I'm doing it light. I'm doing it light and I'm just taking off a little bit of the paper. I can already feel the difference in that. Alright, so I just sanded just this half of the paper. Now, it doesn't look any different, but I can actually feel a difference in it. So I'm just going to get one of my pastels. So that's not... oh, it is different. That's very interesting. Let's try putting down a lot. Mind you, even just trying to get a heavy coat on the plain hot press watercolor paper, it's almost like scratching itself off. But, oh my God, it's genius. Wow, that's interesting. Just by sanding it. Alright, so I'm going to try going over it. Oh wow, look at that. So it went over it here, but I can already see that it's actually, when I draw over it with the red, it's actually scratching off the under layer, whereas this one's just going over the top. Wow, sanded watercolor paper. Who would have thunk it? This is the other thing you can use to prepare your paper. It's just Liquitex Clear Gesso. It's got a really nice tooth to it. It's got a grittiness to it, and it becomes a really nice ground for soft pastels. So that's just another option if you've already got Clear Gesso. Try different brands. I find the Liquitex has the best tooth, whereas some of the other brands are a lot smoother in their finish. So just got to try it. If you've got Clear Gesso at home, pop it on some paper, try some pastels on it, see if you like it. That's all you can do. See if you like it. Now to the pre-prepared / sanded papers. I've got some fancy papers here. So this is Art Spectrum. You know, I do love a good Art Spectrum product. This is their Colour Fix Original Rainbow Pack. Now it's Rainbow Pack because it's just all of their colours on there. And basically what they've done with this is they have for us screen printed the Colour Fix primer onto paper already. So you can just pick it up and go. I haven't actually used any of this yet, but it's actually quite nice. Oh, that bit's a bit bent, but that doesn't matter too much, because if you're framing it, you probably will go over that, frame that bit anyway. It feels very nice. I've never actually used it, so I'm excited to try it. The reason I show you the cheaper options is because you don't need these to do soft pastel art. You don't have to have these pre-primed Colour Fix paper or any of the other ones I'm about to show you in order to do soft pastel art. You don't need it. Simple as that. I have to admit, some of these fancier products make it more enjoyable. Like, that's really pretty. The problem is now, I don't want to use this as a test page and waste a whole page of it, because again, this is not a cheap option. Colour Fix Art Spectrum is the cheaper option out of the other ones I'm about to tell you, but it's still not a cheaper. I don't want to waste this whole paper just doing a couple of squiggles, whereas I don't mind it on the paper I've prepared because it's a lot cheaper. So this is the first one, Art Spectrum Colour Fix. Comes in, I think you can get bigger sizes, like larger sheets. I think you pay for them individually. Look, I'll flick through some of those colours for you. There's some super pretty, some really pretty colours in there. The next one, we're not even looking at price tags, these are all the expensive options, is I've got here some Clairefontaine pastel mat. Now I got a couple of smaller pads again because I wanted to try out the colours. This is like kind of your more warmer tones. It has no red in it, funnily enough. It's got just these buttercup, maize, dark grey and light grey, and they are prepped all the way to the edge. They come with little bits of glassine in between. This is more than just they've screen printed on there. It's a prepped paper. The tooth on this is less than the Colour Fix. This is a lot smoother, the tooth, but that for me doesn't matter so much. Pastel mat's amazing though. It handles, even though it doesn't feel like it will, it does handle layers and layers and layers. I've done a couple of little artworks on these. The other thing you can do with these sanded papers with a primer on them, so the Colour Fix, this one and the next one I'm going to show you, is you can actually do a watercolor underpainting and then do your pastels on top. I don't do that really ever, but it's another option because these are all waterproof papers. They're not gonna, it doesn't soak into the water, it'll sit on top there. It's not gonna act like watercolor paper though, where it like absorbs it. It will sit on top until it's dry. Another thing people do with these ones is they'll do a bit of an underdrawing painting in pastel and then apply alcohol, rubbing alcohol to it, let it dry, and that's their underpainting. It's another option you can do. Now this next one is Canson Mitons again, but It's not just regular matons, it's the velvet. Now I have opened these and I have touched these. This is the velvet, and I got, these are half sheets. They're a bit bigger than A3. A3 kind of ends about here-ish, so it's got about 10 centimeters on it, and it just feels so nice. I've never used it, but even just the way the, this is the type of paper you've just got to touch it. You can get a quarter sheet and try it for a fairly inexpensive amount. I've got a red, I've got a couple of browns for some reason. I think this is a charcoal. There's like a bony color, a buttercup color. Yeah, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 different colors, and it really wasn't that expensive for the quarter sheets. Oh, no, sorry, not quarter sheets. These are half sheets. I think they're half sheets. You can get quarter sheets as well, which makes it even cheaper again. So you don't have to buy the full sheet. You can get a quarter sheet and try it. So I haven't actually tried these yet. Again, we're going to do a larger artwork. So these ones in this little package, it's not little, it's big, are the full sheets. I got a couple of colors in full sheets. I'm not entirely sure. I think because I thought I liked the colors more. So that's the Mitons Velvet, and this that I've just snuck over here is UArt. Now, I have heard UArt is actually really good, and UArt is actually probably cheaper than your Pastel Matte, than your Mitons Velvet, and I've heard really good things about it. It only comes in this like creamy color and black. I think it might come in white, but don't quote me on that. So I got a big sheet of that to try. I will probably cut these down to try a smaller artwork. So these ones, the velvet feel not very rippable, but I feel like you probably could add a pinch. Whereas this UArt feels like a fairly large piece of sandpaper, and I think it will be quite easy to rip down, and I think I'll just use a quarter sheet. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to do some smaller artworks for you now. So I'm actually going to make a little bit of a color palette here. I often don't stick to a particular brand with soft pastels when I make my artworks. I kind of mix and match. I really kind of grab based on color. Alright, so I'm gonna generally use this kind of mix and match. I've got some John Richardson here. I've got, that one is a Unison soft pastel. I kind of went based on color. I've got my 2 Blue Earth. I've got the J Ludder, mainly because I want to use it up because it annoys me. That one's there just because I was using it earlier. I'm not going to use this dark green. I don't want a real green. I wanted just this lime green to be it, and then like these 2 kind of yellowy colors in there, and then a couple of little purples. I know that seems like quite a large amount of colors, but I think it'll be all right. And I'm gonna pop this one in as well because I don't know why. I've got a picture here of a hair that I'm gonna draw. I'm gonna draw it in this. So this is the UArt paper. Oh wow, that looks heaps darker on there than I thought it would because it looks quite light. It actually is probably more of a mid than a light. Oh, that's interesting. I'm just gonna start drawing. Actually, I probably started too high here. Oh, I'm barely touching this to the paper, and it is, yeah, putting a lot of pigment down. I actually don't mind that color for a brown. All right, let's go. See, if I give it a red eye, it's actually going to make it look a bit sickly, isn't it? Hey legends, future Courtney here, future editing Courtney. So I was just having a look back and I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what I thought about these papers, my final thoughts. I really liked the UArt because it was rougher and it was easier. It clung to the soft pastels really easy, whereas the velvet had a little bit less tooth, so it seemed to not cling to the pastels quite as easily. It just meant I had to go a little bit harder. But you know what? Of all three, that UArt pastel matte and the Miton's velvet, I really liked the UArt, funnily enough. And I thought I was going to really like the velvet. I didn't like it as much as the UArt, but that's interesting. I find the velvet and the pastel matte are very on par. They felt very similar to work on. I couldn't really tell much difference. So yeah, they're all more expensive, but just don't forget, please don't forget, you do not need expensive art supplies to start. Just get the cheap stuff and just start. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I love you legends. Bye.